Okay, well, welcome to our agenda and priorities meeting for May the 2nd. And we'll just start with a land acknowledgement. So the town of Innisfail would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Indigenous peoples of the Treaty 7 region and Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our community. And we'll move into 2.1. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? No. Could I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda?
Mayor Barkley, I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunham. All in favor? Okay, thank you. So we'll move into 3.1 with Director Jenkins. I think we want to welcome Ken Jaeger with us today. And so I'll let Director Jenkins introduce you.
Sure, we have Ken here
Ken,
today to give us a 101 on integrated project delivery and that model, which we're pursuing as part of the Recreation Aquatic Center facility development. So yeah, we're just going to turn it over to Ken to give council a presentation to get a better understanding of the process we're going to be working through.
Great, thank you. And it's pronounced Jaeger, although I used to rep for a number of years, so I've been called a lot worse, so it's not that bad. So here today, I just want to walk through really quickly. I'll do the best. We want to have certainly some time for questions, whether throughout or at the end. Go from there. So IPD is a relatively new delivery model here in the construction industry. It originated in the US, probably in the late 90s, primarily in healthcare. And since then, it's come into Canada. Alberta has been kind of leading the way in IPD. We started the first one for publicly funded projects in Red Deer when I was with Red Deer Catholic. In 2014 is when we first started it. So since then, it's been a continuous journey and an enjoyable one. So one of the first things we look at is really what are the issues that we need a new delivery model. And so when we take a look at some of the industry problems that have plagued us in delivering successful projects, poor culture, risky contracts, all of these things, and especially the ones cost overruns, really unclear project requirements. So those are a lot of the things. So this whole IPD is trying to address these issues. And so here's some of the contracts that we've dealt with in the past. So there's construction management, gross maximum funds, CCDC 5, design, bid, build. Again, these are some of the terms that we see as we go through there. The more traditional ones is a design, the design, bid, build is where we hire an architect, they design it along with the engineering team, they design the whole thing, we put it out to tender, tenders closes, we open the envelopes and go, oh no, we're over budget, now what do we do? And we rework everything. So that's probably the one that's done the most. And the CCDC 30 is actually the IPD contract that we'll be working through on this project. So when we take a look at productivity over the course of the last 50 some years, we can see that in non-farm productivity, manufacturing and that's the blue line, and it has gone up significantly, like over 100%, where construction has actually decreased from when they first started. So part of that is to do with, as we said, some of the contract types, but also our buildings are getting more complex design. We're integrating, mechanical systems, fire alarm systems, all these things that make it a little bit more complex. So really what we say is, the definition of insanity, right? Let's do the same thing and expect different results. And so that's what we're trying to stop. We can't repeat the same things and move forward. So in an IPD, really what is key for IPD? It's a multi-party agreement. We have multiple people in there. We use building information model. We refer to that as BIM, so virtual design. And we also employ lean design and construction methodologies. So really eliminating waste, adding value to the project is what our goals are. The other thing that's unique about IPD is that in the contract, it talks about behavioral principles. So the mutual respect and trust, the willingness to collaborate, open communication, it's all identified in the contract, and we measure it as a team as we move forward throughout the project. So really what it means is that we bring all these groups together early on, all members of the team. And we say, well, how do we tell who's on part of the team? Is it every single person that's going to have a hand in the project? And the answer to that is no. It's really who has the biggest impact on budget and schedule. So who's our biggest risks, kind of keep your enemies closer type of thing. So who's going to potentially derail the project? That's who you want on your team. And then we get to hand pick those teams through a value-based RFP process, which we're in the process of doing now. So again, everyone's equal. Key participants are bound together. We have a shared financial risk and reward based on our project outcomes. The liability waiver. So basically we sign on the line saying we can't sue each other, right? So we're forcing us to work. And the last one is a fiscal transparency. So we only get able to bill, and as an owner, we only pay for the actual costs of the project. So the labor cost, we know they tell us what their overhead is, which is all audited or auditable if we choose to do so. Plus everyone's identified what their profit expectations are. If I want to make 10% profit or 5% profit, whatever it is. So we take that and deal with that at a later date. So this is what it looks like. So we have a few different terminologies than you may be used to. One is validation. And so when you take a look at that TVD, that red line below, in the yellow, and conceptualization, design criteria, detailed design, those are some of the terminologies that we use as we go through here that would be more traditional. In validation, we have all these folks together in one room, either virtually or physically. And really what we want to do is to determine what it is that we're going to build, how we're going to build it, and what the owner's goals, objectives, requirements are. TVD stands for target value design. So we design to a budget as opposed to make a design and hope the budget matches. As we go through this, we're going to see a bump at the end. We're going to see that we want everything, but we don't have enough money. So we see a bit of a bump, and then as the team, which is natural, so as the team continues to go through, they find ways to be lean in construction and design, and they find those savings as we go through. So the first time that we get a budget estimate from the team, it might be 20% over budget. And we go, oh no. But the team will find ways to get us back on budget. So it's there. Here's an example of that for school that we did at the beginning. So we had bundled two schools together. It was about a $53 million project is what our actual allowed cost was. And that's in the green dotted line. Our first budget was 6 million plus over budget. And that's kind of that shock and say, oh, what happened now? As we go through this, at some point in time, we need to spend and get through validation. And again, the purpose of validation is to find out what we're building, how we're building it, what our measures of success are, all of these things. And at that point, we say, here's what we can build it for. It's a cost certainty, both for the builders, designers, and for the owner. So in our particular case here, we had a couple things. You can see that the first budget A along the bottom, it was about 6 million over. We worked for a few weeks and dropped that down by about 3 million. So cut it in half, and then it went back up. And that's what on our particular project, we referred to it as the pit of despair. And what happened is we knew that there was an abandoned well site on the site that we're building the school, and they were in the process of remediating it. And so they started, we thought, oh, they said, oh, it's not that bad. It's, a couple meters diameter, maybe a meter deep, not a big deal. Well back from setbacks that were required by legislation. As we went through this, 1 week it came back, well, it's a little bigger than we thought. It's now, 7 meters across. When we were done, in about 3 weeks, that's where that big hump is. It ended up being 40 meters in diameter and 7 meters deep, right underneath the gym and the field house. So that's where, what do we do, right? So as a team, redesigned the entire building in a 3-week period and did it. We signed the contract on this particular one where we were about $1.7 million over budget. The team agreed they would find the savings in construction and design to get this done. That was our stretch goal. So at that point, they were eating up that $1.7 million. If the team would not find that money, that was all out of their profit. So they put the profit on the line for that. We wanted to go to our target cost, which is what the allowable cost. And as you can see, when we ended up doing this, we ended up about $4.2 million, or right around $4 million under budget. So not only did they save the 1.7 that we were over budget, but they saved another 4 million after that. So that's really what it can do for you. I'm not sure we would be able to see that in today's market with escalation and deliveries and all of those. So but it was a great realization what can happen when teams really do work together. But the purpose of validation is really to provide cost certainty, conditions of satisfaction. So what is it that from the town of Innisfail do we need to see in this facility? And it can be from, has to be an 8-lane pool, has to have this, right down to things such as the keying hardware must match all other facilities within the town's operations. So it's a wide range of things as we go through there to do that. And that's why it's so important to have owner input on it. And that's why we're set up for that. So target value design, I mentioned that before. It's really designing to a detailed estimate versus estimating a detailed design. That estimating detailed design, that's that very traditional design it, bid it. Hopefully it's on price and then go from there. So, and really one of the things that we find in here is that the estimators now that we never ever kind of wanted to speak of or hear or talk to, they're some of the key people that need to be part of our team as we go through this process. So again, part of the success for validation. So we need owners program requirements. I know you guys have done a study, you have that. We're going to refresh that, making sure nothing's changed. We're going to make sure the values align. We talked a little bit about design information, specifications, narrative guidelines, whatever that might look like. Values alignment is really important because everyone needs to work together as a project team. So if we have one person thinking their values are different than someone else, another partner or the towns, that's not a good fit. It's project values that determine success, not a key individual. Obviously, we need to know a total allowable cost. I know you've given a budget for that. We're going to look at this. We'll see what happens with markets changing so quickly and rapidly. So we'll design to that budget, do the best we can, and then see where we go from there. It'll be a confirmation on, is that the right budget amount as we will. The other thing is that a pull plan for the entire project. So pull planning is starting at the end and working our way back, as opposed to saying, this is what we're going to do and just let it happen. So we start at the end, work our way back. So the validation phase, we know our allowable costs. We're working on program requirements, design information. At the end of this, you will get a report that will tell you this is what we're going to build. This is the cost. Now you get to decide whether that meets your needs or not. And you say yes or no. At the end of that, there's different things that happen in the contract if you say no, but essentially you're hiring people to do a pretty detailed design on it. That validation report will include transparent budget, will include some specifications, will include some drawings, will include some narratives to say, like you might not have a mechanical system design, but it'll say the mechanical system will have, you know, allow for whatever percent humidity, allow for X number of air changes per hour, all of these details of it from there. So it really depends on what the team needs to get to certainty. They might actually go out and get a hard price from a supplier to determine what the cost is. Other piece, they might not need that. So the contract model, I think we've seen this from time to time, right? So let's make it really complex so no one understands it. But really the contract model, traditionally, we have an owner, we hire a prime consultant, so we hire an architect most of the time. Under the architect, they'll bring on a structural, mechanical, electrical, maybe civil, whatever other consultants that they need to complete the work. We may or may not, as an owner, get to help choose who they have as part of their team. Most often not. But we get the prime consultant, the contractor, the builder. We would choose often by when we rip open the tender documents and see who's the low bid. And hopefully that there's someone that's reputable and that they can do the job without a million change orders and fighting. And again, zero input on who their structural, mechanical, electrical, drywall, painter, flooring, none of that as an owner do we ever get to make a choice in. It's entirely based on low price. Shouldn't say that. Sometimes some contractors will accept someone that's not the low price, but if they do too much of that, then they're not low and they don't get the job. So, and there's a line between the consultants and the designers and the builders. The contract separates those. In an IPD, we work together. So everyone signs a contract. Who we have on there, as I said, depending on the scope of work and how complex the project is and who has the biggest impact on schedule, cost, those things. So it's all signing the contract together, one project that has project values, project goals. So we lose that conflict of, oh, I can't talk to you. You have to go up through the architect, through the owner, back down through the general contractor and to the builder. Now there's none of that looping around. If a builder needs to talk directly to a consultant, they can, right? It's set up that's fair. So really what we're doing is, as we talked about, what we're going to build, how we're going to build it, and who's going to build it, we pull that all to the front. So that's where we're going to start with. So traditionally, it's very linear. Now it's all combined into one. That's what we start. That's included in the validation. That's how we move forward and get those real numbers. Because as a designer, when we do this, they might be good at designing, but they usually aren't great at estimating how much it's going to cost, right? So we rely on a cost estimator, and sometimes it's a hit and miss. So again, that pre-design, schematic design, again, that's all kind of bundled all into that. That's all part of the validation pulled in together. Instead of being done by just one or two team members, now it's the entire team member that's determining all of these. And so you get that further information in there. So the biggest thing that from an owner standpoint, we want to know, what's our risk? What's our risk on doing this new model? And so as we go through this, the risk is that, do we have risk? Yeah, we never eliminate risk. We could, but I don't think we could afford it, right? Every time we want to eliminate risk, it just adds dollar signs. So what we want to do is we want to develop a structure that's going to do this. And the structure of an IPD consists of three key areas. So one is called the PITs. So it's project implementation teams. And they're the ones that actually do all the heavy lifting. They're the ones that do the design. So they're specific groups, they're scope specific. They talk about detailed collaboration and the right people at the right time. So for example, a mechanical issue. So we might have a mechanical pit that works on one issue for 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, they got that issue solved. That pit might become dormant. They might not meet again for another 2 or 3 weeks, depending on what it is that arises in the project. So it's a very flexible, fluid and things. So we might have one pit at the beginning that doesn't exist at the end, or vice versa. There might be something we didn't have one at the beginning, but as the project evolves in the design, then you need some more complexities to do it. The next group is called the PMT, Project Management Team. So this team consists of the owner, the general project consultant or prime consultant, or the architect, and the general contractor. So you'll have at least 3 people. They're the ones that kind of manage the day-to-day operations. They're going to set challenges to the team. They're going to approve invoices from the project. They're going to approve any changes. If there's some new funky design the team comes up with that thinks they want to look at, it's the project management team will make those approvals. And you have those 3 representatives. So they're really, if there's any issues with, they're responsible to make sure the culture's maintained, the behaviors are being met and sustained. So they're the ones that deal with those type of day-to-day operations of the team. The senior management team, they're basically the signatories from each party. Sometimes you have that people will act as SMT and PMT and maybe even the pit. So you will have some organizations that have people in all 3 levels, and one individual may do. So they're really the ones that determine the stretch goals. What's their comfort level of signing the contract if it's not on budget or if it's over budget, any dispute resolutions, and basically general oversight. This SMT group is active at the beginning, sign the contract. After that, it's just more information needed to do that. So in some ways, kind of your role, you're not involved in the day-to-day operations of it, but you want to oversight. How's the project going? What's doing? Are we on schedule? What's our budget look like? So those types of things. The other one with the risk is that we talk about contingency. So traditionally, the contingency is just a random number. 3% of the value of construction, 5%, 10%. It really changes. There's no incentive for the team to reduce or eliminate that items that use contingency. So if there was something on site that caused some concern that we needed to use additional money in a very traditional project, they just fill out the paperwork, and as an owner, we pay, right? There's no incentive to eliminate that or change it. It's everyone just covers their own butt. It's confrontational in most teams. It's a long process. And really every change order that's done traditionally includes probably 2 or 3 levels of markup from profit and overhead. And when they put their labor rate down, it's a shop rate that the person doing the work might make half that, but we're still paying it. So it's there. And again, it just adds to, as we try and eliminate this, it just increases insurance policies costs to do that. So it's difficult to do. In an IPD, there is still some, we don't like the word contingency, so we try and avoid it, but essentially the risk register is the same of managing that contingency. And we don't pick a random number. Early on in the project, we look at it and saying, what specific item has potential to add cost to this project? So early on, we'll have some soils testing done, some geotechnical. Is there a possibility that the soils conditions may not be favorable for the building we're going to build, right? That's always an unknown. So let's carry a reasonable amount in there. Once that's done, we can take that risk off, take any money we had allocated to it, put it back to the team. As an owner, that's where some of that $4 million savings would come from, right? Eliminating those risks. So again, team is encouraged to eliminate risks. It has to be trustworthy, accountable, engaged. So when we do a risk register, we not only identify what the risk is, who's responsible to mitigate it, and a time when we want it done. So it's not waited till the end of the project. So it's there. So the contract also reduces risk. We hold each other accountable, and we end up with lower insurance costs because of it. So here's really the deal as we move forward. And we'll use the same example that I had earlier. So here's who we had on our project. So we had 13 partners, so it was a big contract. So we had roofing, we had curtain wall and the, you know, the glazing, drywall. I think there's even one on here that I don't see, and that's the mill worker was part of this as well. So here's who we had with this. So if we take a look at each one of those partners has direct costs, so labor, material. They have indirect costs. So indirect costs would be, you know, if they have benefit plans, if they have EI, WCB, all of those indirect costs. They have some overhead. What does it cost to keep their lights on in their building? Most of the time, everyone has a little bit of fluff, well, just in case we miss something, just in case. And then profit. And on traditional projects, we see the total cost. We have no idea what this breakdown looks like. And really what we want to do is we want to eliminate that fluff, because now we're all talking, working together. So I don't want to carry something, for example, as an electrician, am I responsible to pull the cabling for the controller, the controls of BMS, building management system? Or is that, which normally falls under the mechanical contractor? So they both carry it just in case. So in this one, we get those people in the same room. Who's carrying it? Who can do it for the most efficient cost? That's whose budget it goes in. The other one, take it out. So we're not doubling up on some of those. So the profit we'll set aside. If you guys perform well, you get your profit. So really we have costs and we have profit, and we break that down for every single partner as we go through this. The profit, we take everyone's profit, we set it aside, put it in a pool. We refer to that as a profit pool. Sometimes you might refer to here the ICL, incentive compensation layer. But basically that's their profit. Find out how much it is, set it aside, we deal with it. So I have an example here that we have an $11 million project, which includes everything. Includes the cost to complete it, whether it's materials, whether it's subcontractors, whatever it is, that's the whole thing. Profit is set aside from our partners. We set it there. So the project goes through, they do everything as they said. So they will get 100% of their cost paid to them, and they will earn 100% of their profit. We pay the profit out at set milestones. So not traditionally, every invoice has profit included in it. IPD, we take the profit, we pay it out when the team is achieving milestones we set as a team. They can be from issuing a building permit, could be one milestone that they would get maybe 10% of the profit that they're expected to make, all the way through to the end of warranty or the building occupancy, whatever it is they have. So various milestones. Another example is that the team does, the cost that the team incurred is actually a little bit more than they anticipated. So in this case, it looks like the cost went over, say out of the $11 million, there's $1 million profit, and $10 million worth of cost is what their estimate was. So in this case, they went over 10 million, maybe it cost 10.5 million of the actual cost. The team loses some of their profit. So now they get less than 100% of their profit. So in this case, if it was $500,000, they would get 50% of what they anticipated to make. And everyone makes the same amount. So when we put that money in a pot, that $1 million pot, we can say that, you know, the general contractor might get 300,000 of that $1 million. The mechanical engineer might get 40,000 of that, whatever it is. So when we reduce the pot, everyone just gets a lower percentage of what now the smaller pot is. The third example is one that I showed you, is that the costs actually were quite a bit less than we anticipated. And so on this one, they get 100% of their profit. Actually, their profit goes up a little bit, but any additional profit or savings gets shared with the owner and the team. So that's the incentive, that's the reward from that. Depending on when these savings are occurred, depending on what the split is. So Usually in design, it's 75% to the owner, 25% to the team. Once construction starts, it's kind of a 50-50 split. So the team would actually get more than 100%. They still earn 100% of their costs. And the final example is really where, as a town and as an owner, this is our risk of if things go really poorly. And that's the case, is that the team spends way more than they first thought. They spend all of their profit. And in this case, they still need $500,000 to finish the project. So as an owner, we are obligated, in the contract says we need to pay 100% of their costs. So in this particular example, we would have to come up with another $500,000 to finish this project. Traditional projects, I've seen this happen as well. We've had way more change orders than expected. And the only difference is that traditionally, every change order includes 2 or 3 levels of markup, profit, nothing, we don't have any control. So, but any cost over and above what it has to finish is actual costs, no profit. It's the labor rates of the individuals doing the work, not a shop rate. And it's only the overhead that we agreed to at contract signing. So we're paying basically as cheap as we can to get the project done. So, and out of the, there's been about 300 projects of IPD projects across North America. I think there's probably been maybe a handful, maybe 4 or 5 that have gone to this extent. Most of them will be example 2 or 3. It goes from there. So again, they will get no profit as they move through. So that's kind of the high level summary of how that profit works. But basically at the end of the day, culture. So again, we see this, if you have a great company, or if your company has everything but a great culture, then you have everything but a great company. So why culture? It changes from a win-lose to a win-win. Synergies are created, people are energized, they're eager to come to work, productivity increases, and we get all people working together. That's the key for success on that one. So that's we do this. And here's a perfect example. How can we fix this, right? It's not my problem. We see that so many times. It's not my problem. You're in the same boat. It is your problem. Whether you're responsible or not, it is your problem. So we need to make sure that we do that. How do we do that? We create something called a big room. A big room is where these activities occur. Okay, so it's where collaboration occurs. Obviously, I've got a virus in here, so my apologies. I thought I had got rid of that. So when we do this, one of the things that we want to do is to make sure that we set this room up to be effective on this collaboration. So it provides areas where people can discuss project-wide budgets, hot topics, global changes to the project, whatever. And and the big room refers to behaviors, not necessarily the physical space. So co-location. So this is an example of co-location. So we have architects, we have designers, we have builders, we have everyone all working in that same physical space, solving problems, finding the best, most cost-effective and easiest way to provide details of construction methodology, yet still meet the building intent. So co-location is one area. It can happen in the big room, but it also happens more than the big room. So co-location is working side by side. So co-location, this is one thing that a lot of people struggle with and grasp. So as an organization, co-location can be, I can have someone working in the room with 4 other people from different companies. That's co-located, but I'm not working solely on this particular project. I can be doing all kinds of other work that I have assigned to me. But when someone has a question about this project, I'm there 10-minute conversation, we got a problem solved, let's move on. It's quick, it's easy, we get that collaboration. So all that when we're co-locating, not all the time is billed to this project, only the time that they spend doing it. So we can do that. So why is it important? It helps overcome challenges, efficient sharing of information, right? That email thread and phone calls and text, trying to get information and answers can take forever sometimes, it seems. So we want instant answers to our questions and our concerns. And we can speed up the decision-making process, eliminate gaps in expectations, all of these things that potentially could be problems in the design process. Really, co-location is intended to avoid this, right? So we're all working together in the same things. We don't want to get to a point and go, uh-oh, what happened? So in order to make this successful, we have a few things that, first of all, we talked about BIM. So again, it's a 3D model, it's building information model. We can go to various levels. On the schools we built, we were one of the first ones that we did not print drawings. We built entirely from the model. We had tablets, iPads on the site. People built from that. We had the mason. We found this out after. He was a genius when it came to using the model and finding things out. We wish we would have known that earlier. He could have been our trainer for all his colleagues with other companies. But he would have his iPad there. He would do everything from his iPad for layouts, where doors went, where all the stuff went. And so it's trying to eliminate that. Then you have the most current, up to date. You don't have a drawing that was printed a month and a half ago that's no longer valid. So you have the most current and up to date one. We can use class detection. We can put in and say, oh, the mechanical wants to run ducts. And then we say, oh, it's not going to work very good there because those cross members are going through the duct, So those are things that can speed it up. We do something called VDC, Virtual Design Construct. So we actually walk through to see this before we actually get on site to identify any of these problems and make corrections. Rather than standing up here and looking, yeah, that doesn't work. What do we do to fix that? You know, so that time there. Forecasting, something that we get into once we get into design and especially into construction. We do this on a monthly basis to say, here's what it is. How do we do this? Here's what we spent in October. Here's what we spent in November. Are we over budget? Are we under budget? Are we still on track going there? And so as we go through here, that if we're tracking in the wrong direction, then the team as a PMT needs to react, adjust, refocus. What do we have to do to make changes so we're tracking in the right direction? Decision matrix, just logging changes. How do we do this? Is there something new we want to do? What's the cost to the team? Is it a team cost? Is it an owner cost? What is it that we have? And then, of course, over on the side, we always have project values. What are the values of the project? How are they impacting those? As this is a school, a learning environment, was it a positive, negative, or no impact on the learning environment as you went through? So same thing here. As we go, it could be user group, it could be all types, maintenance department, operations, sustainability, whatever the project values are, every decision impacts those. So this helps guide our decision-making process. If someone came forward and said, we want to do this, and it was a negative for every single project value, why are we considering this, right? So whole planning, again, we talked about it. It's it's pulling, not pushing. So it's not the general contractor saying, we need you to have this done and you're going to do it next week and you got 4 days. And the builder doing it said, it's 3 weeks worth of work. I can't do it in 4 days. Well, that's too bad. That's all you got. Make it happen, right? So it's that whole culture thing. So it's the people doing the work, determining the length and working together to do it. When we hit constraints, you can identify it, handoffs, overlaps are discussed, addressed. Here's an example of what a pull plan can look like, right? Just stickies, notes, whatever. With COVID, the last couple of years, there's been a lot of technology developed. So there is certainly more now that you can do virtually. But it's going to be a combination of both as we move forward. Plus delta, so kind of part of that lean is a plan, do, check, and act. So we plan the work, we do the work, we check the work, and then we act or we evaluate the work and change it. So this is one thing that we do on a monthly basis. We'll look at behavioral values. How are we doing? Are we still accountable? Are we meeting our deadlines? And as a team, we evaluate ourselves, make changes, score ourselves out of it. And you can see up on the top there, it was 8.5, 7.5, 8.5. So, right, the team evolves and changes, and we need to evaluate and do things that are going to meet our needs. So lean, again, what we want to do is we want to provide customer value through streamlined processes, practicing continuous improvement, eliminating waste, those types of things. So here, kind of 8 wastes that are common that we talk about in lean, all of these things: overproductions, waiting, non-utilizing talent, all of these things that we do. Motion can be a big one once we get on site. And there's a lot of studies done to do that. For example, a drywall trade, does he have his tools and equipment with him on a cart, or does he have to, every time he runs out of screws or nails, he has to walk, 10-minute walk to fill his pouch up? Or is it something that he can do that? So just little things like that can save a lot of time. The other things that we did is we did studs and lifts. So rather than every company renting lifts or bringing their own on, we said, how many lifts do we need? General contractor rented them all, and then we just shared them, developed a plan to share. Steel studs, we modeled every single stud, and then when they ordered them from the factory, they were all cut to length, and they just put them up rather than taking the time and cutting them. Our drywaller said it probably saved 30% improvement on construction by doing that. This is one that we like to share, utilizing the talent we have. So traditionally, this is what a typical handrail on a staircase would be, kind of that post and picket, round tubes with the things on it. Our steel stud manufacturer, our structural steel manufacturer who's doing the work said, I'm not really set up to do round work, I'm more flat bar work. So the architect sketched this. From that, he made a couple samples, brought to the team, made that. No, I don't like that. Made it there. The one on the right, it's a little bit hard to see. But when we were done, that's what it looked like. And we got this built. It was powder coated, so it provided a long-term maintenance. We were able to put it in during construction. They powder coated it, came in, bolted together, put it in. So it's a more durable product. We used it during construction for fall protection, and it costs less than the traditional one, just by utilizing the talent that the trades have. Overhead for work for electrical. So rather than going on a lift and drilling holes and mounting up above overhead, what we did is before we installed the roof, we had did a layout with the surveyor, and they went on top of the roof and drilled holes going down rather than standing up drilling holes. And it saved about 40% of savings for that install. So just little things like that. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it's little things that can make a big difference. You start adding those up. So really, we want to make everything visual, explicit, transparent. It's not business as usual. It takes a change in everyone's mindset. And really what we want to do is that we want to have companies that are kind of in the same bay, generally going in the same direction, or do we want them all in the same boat, really focusing and going in the same direction as we do that? So, and the one thing that we need to remember, not every company, every owner, every project is an IPD fit. So we need to evaluate that and make sure that even within a company, they might be set up for it, but they might have individuals that may not be the best for IPD. So it's really about the people. The people will make it a success, not the company name. It doesn't matter what they drive up to, what logo on the side of their vehicle is when they show up for work, is the person getting out of that vehicle that's going to make or break. And so that's really important. And that's part of the RFP process. That's why it's so important. to find out who it is that they're proposing for the job and what that individual brings to the table. Yes, they need a company that supports them and have the administration to support it, but it's the people doing the work that are going to make it. So that's it. I tried to speed it up a little bit. So any questions?
All right, well, thank you very much, Ken. It's very interesting questions. Councillor Hystad.
I've worked in this with IPD before, Ken. I was just curious what our managers like Director Kennedy, how comfortable are you working in this environment too? I'm sure it's your skill trade as well, but maybe you could teach us a few things too. I don't know. I think it's really cool, but are we gonna overload you with some of the work we're giving you too? It's always my concern. You only have so much time and capacity and.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Council, I said so. The more I learn and the more times that I hear this presentation, I think I get more excited about the project. Being from a traditional design bid build and the frustrations that I've always seen come from those projects. I think this process for this type of project, I think totally fits. And Ken's very right towards the end there saying that this isn't the process for all projects. I think this is the type though that would fit very well. And workload, yeah, we'll get through it. No worries.
From a workload standpoint, previously, I don't know if there's any more time committed to the project from start to finish, but it shifts. So traditionally, you spend more time on site during construction, solving issues, solving problems. In IPD, you're spending more time up front to avoid those problems. And so, number one, it's a lot more enjoyable because you're not fighting with someone to fix mistakes. And then you also have that. So it is, for the duration of a 3-year project, say, I don't know if there's more time, but the time has shifted when you put that time in.
So okay, Ken, a question I have, and maybe with Director Kennedy too, when you do the RFP process, I'm assuming not every contractor, not every architect has done this before. So, is there, a choice of several different organizations, companies to pick from? And you talked a lot about lowest cost, but is there also provisions for, let's say, community benefit agreements, or, we're kind of going down the path of social procurement and using local trades, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's one of the key things about, and the nice things about the value-based RFP and selection process is that you can add these things in relatively easily, and it's not 100% lower cost. As far as trying to make it fair and open for the marketplace, we talk about IPD in the context of the RFP, but as we're asking for examples, we're not asking necessarily for IPD experience, we're asking for collaborative experience. So give us examples of projects where you've worked collaboratively with others. That's what we're looking for. Like certainly if IPD, you have to do that collaboratively. So those of that done IPD may have a bit of an advantage, but it doesn't rule out people that haven't done it. So it's more the collaborative component of it that we're looking for. And so it's a combination of, because we do ask for their price, we do ask for their labor rates, we do ask for their overhead, we do ask for their profit expectations. And we use that as part of the evaluation process, but it's not solely driven by that.
Okay, thank you. And where are we, CEO Becker, Director Kennedy, in this whole process? I know we decided a few weeks ago that I think this is the route that we are going with Aquatic Center / rec complex. And
Yep. So we have changed the name to a recreation aquatic center.
okay, I'll try to remember that. Okay.
So currently we are just starting the interview process for the architects. So that's actually on Wednesday and Friday. And currently we have the RFP out for the prime contract or general contractor. So that'll be interview process probably in 2 weeks for that one.
Okay, that's great.
So definitely coming along quickly. Hopefully anticipation on schedule would be once we get our architect in place, probably the next 2-3 weeks, we will actually start looking at the programming portion of it.
So at that point in time, do we kind of go back a few steps and like, are you taking the design that we kind of have had the last couple of years and using that as kind of the formulation of a base of where you start from, or?
Definitely we'll be
Okay.
reviewing the background information that we have. Like, because we have spent a lot of time and effort in the process of programming and stakeholder engagement. That will be part of that first process, is the programming and do we have the targets that we were looking for?
Perfect, thank you. Okay. CEO Becker, did you? No, I'm sorry, I thought you were putting your hand up, sorry. Okay, well, thank you very much again, Ken, for coming today. We really appreciate it. And thanks for enlightening us in this process. It's very interesting. I think we're all excited to move forward. And thanks to Director Kennedy for all the work he's doing in this area as well. And okay, you're welcome. Have a good day. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to 3.2 energy plan with CEO Becker. We'll begin.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Barkley. As you can see by the report, it's an all-in report. You don't see these very often, so it should be fun engagement with you. Just wanted to talk to you regarding energy. Just to kind of open it up with council on a few things that have been discussed or in play or cannot be in play. Depends on your feedback. Certainly looking for your outline your expectations too, even on process. For example, expression of interest, give direction to proceed with expression of interest, but if council is not comfortable with that kind of direction administratively without an awareness of council, you just please say so. Obviously, as we establish more of a focus of energy, we know really where that line is on what council's expectations are, but we'll certainly have the conversation, but please, your straight up feedback would be appreciated. Just a couple of things from my perspective. The Economic Development Committee heard from administration last week regarding the Energy's Futures Roadshow. The Energy's Futures Roadshow, I'll just back up a little bit, but the Energy's Futures Lab is, I just wanted to talk to you, first of all, before I get into the Energy's Futures Roadshow, I want to explain to you what is the Energy's Futures Lab that's generating the Energy's Futures Roadshow. So you heard a few times Mayor Barkley mention the CAO's involvement with Energy's Futures Lab. It's an organization that is set up. It's a multi-sectoral approach to explore innovation for energy transition. So more specifically, the EFL, Energy's Futures Lab, is an Alberta-based coalition of diverse innovators and leading organizations working to accelerate the energy transition. There's collaborative effort occurring to develop solutions for low emissions and socially equitable energy futures. Some of the funders of the EFL include such companies such as Suncor, RBC, Government of Canada, Shell, Enbridge, etc. The mission of the EFL is to leverage Canada's assets and innovation capacity to accelerate an inclusive and equitable transition to a prosperous set net zero future. So back in 2018, the chair of our economic development working group, Patricia Bourne, who then was with Equus as the CEO, approached me as the CAO, asking if the town of Innisfail would like to host the EFL Energy's Futures Roadshow. And during that time, the organization was really in a place of transition. We didn't have a lot of capacity even to run a program for a few days. We're in a significant transition at that time. The response from administration was no, we cannot make this happen due to we don't really have anybody here to make this work. So perhaps another time when we advance our organization to to meet the demands and requirements. Patricia Bourne was considered a fellow. There's a fellowship. There's about 30 people that are considered fellows that make up kind of the guiding governance piece of the EFL. Patricia Bourne is no longer a fellow, but there is a local individual that works for Equus who is a fellow. We engage with Brad Nickel on occasion. So the expertise is there. Since 2018, I've been asked to sit in on a few EFL initiatives. I was recently part of an Energy A1 series of workshops looking at digital opportunities for the energy sector. Demand side technology, for example, was being explored. So really, a really amazing conversation to help create policy for government for consideration. It's an all effort, all players involvement to advocate for moving policy forward through governments. So on last Thursday, the ActDev working group heard that same kind of dialogue. Through the dialogue and then input from the chair, Patricia Bourne, the recommendation was to recommend to council to submit expression of interest to EFL to host the 2023 Energy's Futures Roadshow. Just recently, when the economic development strategy was adopted by council, there was a component in that strategy that states that Innisfail to host an energy-related function, whether it's a conference or some sort of activity regarding energy. If your vision is going to be energy, the power component, then consider creating a little more identity regarding drawing a focus to our community with energy. So through Kara and myself, we reached out to EFL. Are you guys still doing road shows? There's an opportunity here. And they said, if we can be available tomorrow morning, you can see it on the Brooks Road Show. So I sat in on the final day of 3 in the Brooks Region Roadshow as a full participant, and got to watch Barry Machito and other people of the Chamber of Commerce, their economic development, stakeholders, citizens participate in this interesting conversation to create a vision of that region for energy. So due to connections with EFL, they've then submitted an email back to us saying that we think Innisfail would be an ideal spot to host a year-long road show, not a 3-meeting road show. And they just don't want to come in for 3 days and say, you're done, have a not Merry Christmas, but have a good life. So anyways, they want to see action. And I know council and committee want to see action, and which is going to lead into a report from administration for next week to submit an expression of interest to EFL to be a host of the next Energy Futures Roadshow. It's a great opportunity. The cost is time and probably a working location to meet. And so it's a great opportunity, but maybe per part of the report, I'll just stop. I'll just stop there, council, if there's any questions regarding this opportunity.
Questions, anyone? Councillor Bates?
So just to make sure I'm hearing it right, so are you asking us for a 3-day or for a year-long roadshow?
The report you'll see, Councillor Bates, it's just to do the roadshow, which will make up a year-long process, which would be, it'll drive success. I don't think they have a choice. They want to go to a year-long roadshow.
So within that year-long, would there be how many? Obviously, there's work going on all the time, but would there be reviews or would there be presentations on some frequency, or what? I'm a little lost.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really good question, Councillor Bates. We don't have the fine detail. This is a new concept being a year long. What they're asking for us to submit a expression of interest. Administratively said, interested, but it's not my decision. It's really up to council to approve the expression of interest to submit. All those fine details will come at the next stage of information. So what I'm asking, what we'll ask for you of next week is, let's submit the expression of interest. It'll charge administration to go into the EFL and get more finer details of what that year-long process would look like. I think they're working on that themselves.
So at the point, follow-up question, at the point then that we would be asked to agree, would you have an estimate of staff time and cost, or what do we base ours? It obviously sounds interesting, but
Yeah.
without any of that.
Yeah, again, Councillor Bates, only looking for an expression of interest, only we're interested, but we need more detail. That's kind of what the expression of interest is. So that's really what I'll be asking of you next week is, if you're interested, just say, yes, we're interested to submit an expression of interest. And then that'll charge us to go back to EFL and give us the goods. What does this program look like? How much time is committed to this? Give us the whole scope of this whole program, so for us to bring it back to council for review.
Thank you.
Councillor Hystad.
Is it, your worship, to CEO Becker, is it strictly virtual, or is it going to be coming right to Innisfail? Just kind of curious.
Mayor Buckley, Councillor Hystad, I know the Brooks was a blend. They had both in person, and then the final review was virtual, the one I sat in on. I would anticipate, if it's the atmosphere is what right now, I'm anticipate mostly would be in person.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Yeah, and I don't need to dig into the details. It's sounds like a really good opportunity, and as to time and energy, I think that we're going to be throwing probably lots more to you. So I think this is cool. Thanks.
Councillor Maceros.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. To CEO Becker, are there a number of communities that would be submitting an expression of interest, or is it just kind of for one community?
Good question, Councilor Mazeros. I think they'd probably want to kind of leave it that they're going to leave the market and let people apply, but they've expressed a really strong interest for Innisfail to host. So I think if we want to do it, it sounds like we have a good chance or a likelihood of hosting it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of us putting in an expression of interest, and it's a wonderful opportunity and fits perfectly with our strat plan, our community economic development plan as well. So I hope to see this next Monday and that we can move forward with it.
Thanks, Council. Just going to the next item is the Canadian Hydrogen Convention follow-up, and I did put together my meeting notes for you, and I don't know if you want to do a quick scan through them. A really busy conference. I thank you for the opportunity to attend. It was a global related conference. There's members, energy related people from all over the world. But just a few notes I made. So some of it is notes. Some of it I won't be able to go into the finer detail of it. If I can't answer, I'll certainly try to dig in. But I went to about 15 different sessions. It was a mix of both a strategy session upstairs of the Shaw Convention Center, then a more technical conference in the basement. And I went up and down. They better food on the top there than the bottom. So just a few things. Blue hydrogen. Just some of these technical terms. Blue hydrogen is a reformation of natural gas plus CCUS. And we're hearing lots of CCUS. Information. They did mention that by 2030, Alberta is expected to be a leader in hydrogen production. And this is kind of the poll I had on the conference was, but we're also hearing that there's a big global market in Europe and China regarding hydrogen. So it's just some of the terminology I was still a bit, are we going to be that, or is this a rah? But I'll spare you some of my own personal thoughts. The CCUS storage reservoirs, So to hold carbon as within deep coal seams, within saline aquifers, which is likely going to be the first storage system, within depleted oil and gas fields and depleted organic shales. The carbon trapping techniques include land structural trapping, solubility trapping, residual trapping, mineral trapping. Obviously, I cannot explain what those are exactly. The one session I did attend, there's amazing scientists related conversation, and they demonstrated some of the technologies to demonstrate the monitoring of the CO2 for a long periods of time. And it's all models at this given time in Canada or Alberta. Western Canada is known to be considered attractive to store large sedimentary basin or storage considered very, large storage capabilities due to large sedimentary basin. However, it is considered very expensive for companies to store carbon. There are some risks with CCUS within the boreholes and seismic activity. There's some pressure from investors to expand their ESG. Companies want to invest with companies that are focused on sustainability to mitigate future risks. We're hearing that more and more often, the ESG component of the companies and where their money are going. They want to invest with a responsible company. And we heard that a little bit with our engagement last week with one of our local companies is more focused on ESG. The session number 2, there was a company out of Prince George that presented on some of their major large truck fleet and converting large fleet from diesel to co-diesel hydrogen. They stated that large truck make up 1.37% of all vehicles, but they contribute to 30% of all the transport related emissions. And that would go with trains and buses, etc. Hydra has converted 4 trucks and has 4 years of on-road data. They even talked about the systems, how they can manipulate the diesel hydrogen mix based on where they're traveling. They said on certain components of the Coca-Cola, they will go more diesel due to the altitude and the hills, and to create more efficiency for that specific vehicle. So they can do that on demand within their systems. And they're demonstrating an emissions reduction of 40%. It's interesting that the engines do not have to be modded out. I thought they'd have to do new engines, but no, they can use the same engines. And on the next page of your report, the item, the orange item is really the technology that allows to blend the hydrogen with the diesel. And you can see the hydrogen tanks located behind the cabin sleeper of the truck in the picture below. Pretty interesting. So this company Hydra is currently using a blend of 40% diesel, 60% hydrogen, and trying to increase more hydrogen. And they're expecting the technology to advance to 100% hydrogen by 2024. They indicated that hydrogen has a very high or low, very low freezing point, minus 256 degrees Celsius. Right now, the focus is not on your basic pickup truck due to they're focusing in the high emissions area as what the market's doing. So right now, the current energy, so number 3, the current energy focus is on environmental, economics, and emissions. There are blending opportunities in existing natural gas distribution lines. There was one presenter up the strategic panel that in Calgary has a hydrogen tank in his yard, and it's mixing in with his natural gas to feed into his residential. Fort Saskatchewan does have a subdivision developed or being developed regarding, I'm not sure if it's fully hydrogen, but I think it's likely more of a blend with natural gas and hydrogen. So that's an interesting development. Natural gas blend is not shown to be an effective emissions reduction strategy. So there's some mixed comments you're hearing. I'm just picking up comments I heard. So you're saying that it is certain reductions, but then you're saying, no, it's not necessarily a good reduction strategy. large-scale structural changes to the energy system would be required. Using hydrogen instead of natural gas will create emissions reduction. So different speakers, different philosophies. Using hydrogen from using blue hydrogen, which is what the ATR CCS is, will create emissions reductions if placed in place of natural gas. So one speaker stated that consider low carbon hydrogen as just one possible option in a large portfolio of options for the low carbon energy transition efforts in Alberta. I think Sean Collins would likely agree with that. Many other emissions reduction strategies are currently available at lower cost and provide deeper emissions cuts. Opportunities for hydrogen are that it creates domestic demand in short term and attracts investors to create more production facilities in Alberta. Scale demand is critical, significant cost advantage by employing economies of scale. What you hear a lot about is there's a supply opportunities, there is demand, but someone needs to scale it up to make it worthwhile for investors to get it to scale, which is usually government related programs and incentives. Regional hydrogen hubs will be key, and there's one being explored in Crossfield, a large area in Crossfield area. TC Corporate is exploring, doing their assessment by the end of 2023 to look at a hydrogen natural gas hub, which would be a feeder to large fleet. Capital support is required for fueling stations to support build out in the early market. The demand for hydrogen will dictate the gas delivery option, whether it'll be trucked or pipeline. Pipelines are essential to enable hydrogen to be used in multiple sectors. The next page, it's a capital intensive, various policies and financial instruments will be need to remove market barriers, mitigate risk and speed up transition. Financing the energy transition, there's not enough investors as there are holes in achieving capital in some parts of this space. This is not a proven market and lacks proven technology. However, there's other comments later that there is proven technology because Europe and China are full of this technology. There's urgency to develop hydrogen technology, the need to invest in technology that has high impact. Taking the high road number 5, Europe will have, by 2040, they'll have 40,000 kilometers of hydrogen related pipelines within their country. The focus now is as much as energy security due to the war as it is with carbon emissions. So certainly a focus change due to what's going on right now. Natural gas pipelines can be used, but there are limitations and risks. One is the brittleizing, whatever the terminology of, and fear of pipelines being built for natural gas. There's different makeup of the elements of hydrogen. So there is some worry, a little bit of the brittleizing of the natural gas pipes, but it still has opportunity. Using hydrogen to decarbonize natural gas, there's hydrogen hubs, like I said, Crossfield being explored, and of course Edmonton. There was a comment about we need to curb the hydrogen expectations to the limitations of available capital and capacity. So there is a big push to the hydrogen conference that there's a lot of attention on this hydrogen conference, but a lot of things need to happen for hydrogen to really move forward. Scaling of the industry is required and requires government investment. Hydrogen production requires a large amounts of water, and water is a critical commodity if using natural gas, CO2 sequestering if it's required. I just made a note, talked to ATCO regarding some of our developments, maybe in industrial park regarding is there a blending opportunity for hydrogen for efficiencies within a new development such as an industrial park. ATCO will have a pure hydrogen building in 2022. I'm not sure where that is. The end user perspective, CP Rail spends $1 billion in diesel each year. BC, the province will have 4 hydrogen vehicles fueling stations by the end of 2022. So is Alberta really the hydrogen champs? There's certainly a lot of momentum going on in BC. Ontario spoke about some of their initiatives. Saskatchewan is moving with their strategy as well. International panel, hydrogen future, energy security is a focus. There has a few countries speaking, a lot of funding available associated with hydrogen in Europe. France has a hydrogen strategy with €1 billion geared towards projects. Chile is focusing in on ammonia as a byproduct for such things as fertilizers. However, safety is a concern. Norway pathways to net zero. There's a lot of EV related activity in Norway. Everyone is focused on hydrogen production, but needs consumers. There needs to be more incentives to move towards hydrogen. Austria as well, 73% of energy production is renewables. France is converting their natural gas lines to hydrogen. Norway is a leader of EVAs, charging stations, electric vehicles, with 84% of vehicles being electric. And this comes with incentive programs. Austria is stating that electricity is the highest cost of hydrogen production. Their electrolyzers is a technology that's used to create electricity, to break water into hydrogen and oxygen into electrolysis process. Feasibility of hydrogen pipeline, material implications. Hydrogen reduces material resistance and creates pipe embrittlement. Many current standards codes do not consider embrittlement effects. There is a regulation in draft currently. Standards are not expected to limit hydrogen concentrations, and a new assessment is required on the current systems that could be used. More work is needed to evaluate the conversion from natural gas pipelines to hydrogen. I was really interested to hear that the standards, it's going to be up to the operators, not regulatory, to ensure that on the safety of the pipelines. Anticipation that a lower concentrate hydrogen natural gas mix will be used for the existing pipelines. Hydrogen energy is an ideal mechanism for high energy needs and needs a government mandate. There are feedstock opportunities and technology opportunities. As mentioned, TransCanada Energy Corp is exploring the development of a network of renewable natural gas transportation hub in Crossfield. It's a renewable natural gas derived from decomposing organic waste and non-fossil fuels. It's interesting to get a little bit more detail on impacts to municipalities, more on the big fleet on buses. There are 4,000 buses in the Greater Toronto area, which is huge emissions. So councils are torn on investing on such technologies and fleet that advance buses with hydrogen versus more economical, buying a diesel bus, much cheaper, but does not have the emissions controls as we want. We'll see large fleet demand sectors advance into hydrogen versus that of individual vehicles. City buses valued over $1 million. Strathcona, 2 buses for hydrogen would cost in the area of $4 million. So a pretty significant investment required. So yeah, government needs to build the capacity to make it affordable. China and Europe are sprinting with energy initiatives and are building competencies. And Canada is lagging behind. Alberta needs to get into the game, scale up quickly in order to keep up. There was a comment that from one of the industry leaders that Alberta really needs to get into the game over the next year, or will be an importer of hydrogen versus an exporter. That's how fast things are advancing. There are zero emissions regulations, as we know and hearing often. 100% by 2040. So it's really not too far away. Talent workforce in certain locations will be an issue. Prince Rupert has some hydrogen related activity there, is having a tough time with talent attraction there. Center of Excellence was announced, 2,000 acre development southwest of Grand Prairie in Greenview County, called the Greenview Industrial Gateway, Canada's natural gas processing exploration center. Eric, I'll leave it to you to Google Eric Products and Chemicals, who are part of a $1 billion project in the greater Edmonton area regarding hydrogen. They've been in the hydrogen game for many, many decades. Again, transportation supply of hydrogen. I don't have the details of that project, but it sounds like it's in the process. There's a comment that there's not an issue with demand, the need for production, there's a need for production incentives. Yeah, we're just stating that Alberta really needs to, and Canada really needs to move really quickly. Supply will be addressed and concerns with demand. The demand exists, however, there is a need for policy and regulation to develop the scale to be able to map out the entire value chain. There's pressure to deliver low carbon fuel in the economy, or the new consumer mindset will go somewhere else. So it kind of goes back to that ESG, that people, consumers will start looking for, the fuel of the modern fuel. And that's just, that's what I see with the demographical changes too, as we advance the demographics. It's gonna be interesting on the consumer behaviors that goes with that. Incentives, policies, and timelines are important. Carbon pricing policy and regulations are an important piece to stimulate investment, etc. There was a huge announcement by the Edmonton International Airport. There was 11 companies that were introduced, and I can't name them, but one was Toyota. They're moving the international airport into a lab, a hydrogen lab. So Toyota is going to be having fully hydrogen fleet at the airport. So there's different components of the airport all related to hydrogen. It's phenomenal. I'll leave it to you to do your research on the international airport, but it's really the amount of people they introduced and what they're doing is phenomenal. To have that many agreements in those partnerships is really interesting. So that's really a quick and dirty on just some of the quick hits on the conference. Really interesting. A big conference, and a lot of questions and a lot of unknowns, and so certainly not just us, but a lot of things need to happen for us to wonder what's gonna happen with hydrogen. So I'm not sure if I can answer any of your questions, but
Thank you, CEO Becker, for that. It really does seem like a race at this point, doesn't it?
Mhm.
That maybe we're not winning.
yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I heard there was 3,500 or 4,000 people at the conference. Is that
Yeah, it's
correct?
huge,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's big. That's big. Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of news about it. So, no questions? No technical questions? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
No
attending,
questions.
and glad that we were present for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to Director Vickers now.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So we all know how important energy is, energy consumption, achieving environmental sustainability. So with that thought, we did decide to develop an energy policy, but this policy document is more kind of an overreaching policy that just outlines the town's commitment to energy and how we're going to conduct ourselves in future decision making. So it is attached here. It is just in draft form. But the purpose is to commit to achieving community environmental sustainability, to demonstrate leadership within the organization and the community through a commitment to energy management, to lead and inspire actions that conserve, protect, and enhance the environment for the community, to integrate environmental principles and for performance objectives into decision-making processes to enhance environmental sustainability for present and future generations, and to recognize that environmental stewardship is a shared responsibility of government, businesses, communities, and individual citizens. Would you like me to keep going, or do you have any questions, or?
Has everyone had time to look over this policy and have any questions for Director Vickers?
Is this the right step for us to go in, is to have a policy like this?
I would say definitely. I
Okay.
think it just fits so well with everything we've put forth so far in our priorities. And so it starts to build out the plan, and underneath this, you will be building out work plans, and
Absolutely.
makes perfect sense. Everybody's nodding. Mhm.
Okay,
They're
perfect.
quiet, but they're nodding.
Okay, perfect. So the next item that was under my name is the Clean Energy Improvement Program. So Alberta has recently developed a Clean Energy Improvement Program, otherwise known as CEIP. And this program provides municipalities the opportunity to offer competitive financing to property owners for energy efficiency and renewable energy upgrades. CEIP covers up to 100% of project costs and offers convenient repayment through property owners' regular tax bill. So this financing approach, which is known as Property Assessed Clean Energy, or PACE, is garnering successful results in municipalities across Canada. Alberta municipalities must pass a bylaw and choose to implement the program. And then property owners located in these municipalities are able to choose to apply. So the upgrades must fall into one of the 5 different categories. So the first one is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Under renewable energy, solar PV and thermal, lighting, water heating, and then doors, windows, insulation, and air sealing. So Leduc just started their program just this spring. Edmonton, Devon, and Rocky Mountain have already done it. And there's about 11 or 12 other municipalities who have already signed bylaws, but have not yet implemented the program. If this is something that we wanted to do, we would do the bylaw first and then go through the application process through Alberta municipalities. So likely we would not be implementing this until next springtime. It takes that long.
Does the program get to a point, Director Vickers, where it becomes oversubscribed, or does it stay open? Do you know?
Yeah, so Mayor Barkley, we would decide that in the bylaw, and we would identify a number. Let's say it's $4 million. And that's the limit of the program. So once it's oversubscribed of that much, then we would either have to do another bylaw or.
I guess I was referring more to the program itself, to the SEAT program. Like, does it get closed off at some point in time? Do we know, or no?
Not that I've
Yeah,
read anywhere
okay.
in this. I did apply to do, they have the CEIP 101 webinar. So I've applied to attend and view that. I just haven't done that yet. So I'm sure I'll learn more then as well.
About, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, a gentleman from Rocky Mountain House reached out to me about our solar farm here. And of course, they're doing this program in Rocky. And I think he said they had spots for 10 or 12 applications, and it's so far oversubscribed in Rocky that they're looking to expand the program going forward. So it's been really, really popular there. So I'm definitely in favor of this. Councillor Bates.
So my question is, how does it work? There's talk here of paying back through your taxes, but so where does the initial flow of money come from?
So
Like if I wanted to do an upgrade to my heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, where do I get the money from the town?
So not really. So the bylaw allows us to go to a company like FCM. They've opened up funding for this program, and we essentially take out a loan or a line of credit that we say we're going to use towards this. When a successful application comes through, we can take that money and pay for that person's upgrades, and they pay back the annual costs on their tax notice.
Okay. Without more information, it's too preliminary for me to, with us pursuing a borrowing bylaw for the development of the industrial lands, and you have to put it all together and check your capacity, I guess is.
Any borrowing for this clean energy program is not counted towards our debt limit. or our
Doesn't matter,
borrowing
it's
limit.
still debt, and we have to, at some point, track all of our debt.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I understand, Director Vickers, the program was supported by ATB as well. That's what Scott from Rocky told me, that the borrowing came through ATB, I think at 0.85%.
Right, so we can choose to go to any bank. FCM also does have funding as well, so we can go to whoever we'd like, whoever would give us the best rate.
Yeah, and
essentially.
then the person that's doing it is paying it all back.
That's right.
It's not us carrying
That's right.
that. Yeah, I mean, we are, but we're not. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Heistan.
Yeah, so it's open to all banks, like we can go to any bank for that lending itself?
Yeah, any bank that we're able to go to through them that's outlined in the MGA.
Okay, yeah.
So any bank here in town we could go to, or
Yeah, there was a project, I think it was 2 years ago with the previous, I think it was the previous government where you could upgrade and I think ATB was involved, but no, it's interesting. It sounds like, and I understand what Councillor Bates is saying as well as, the mechanics of the program itself, but we'll wait and see where it lands. Thanks.
So your next step on this, Director Vickers, are you like going to bring back more information, and then we can look at whether we want to move forward and develop a bylaw? And
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
Mayor Barkley. So I'm hoping that once I can get in and have a chat with them and maybe
Yeah.
watch this webinar or have a phone call with someone who does the program, then I'll come back with more information and give you some more details.
yeah, no, it sounds really interesting. Lots of communities obviously getting on board. So thank you.
All right, looks like I'm next. So mine's pretty brief, just an update on our energy efficiency projects. So these are the energy efficiency and reduction projects that were identified through the investment grade audit that we had completed in 2021. So currently there's an RFP out for the installation of solar PV on the fire hall, town office and curling rink. That closes later this week. So we should be moving forward with those projects through the summer. Lighting upgrades are all currently out for quote, but again, will also be taking place very soon. Same with the furnace replacements. Basically, the only project identified within that previous scope is the HVAC controls, which we're just doing some further, I guess, review and investigation on the best way to approach those control systems, just because they're typically all proprietary and depending on which company you choose and what you get tied into in terms of equipment and software. So, but other than that, the other components of the project are all moving forward. So we should start to see those, barring crazy supply chain issues, which seem to be impacting electrical systems. We'll be as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you. We had a guest on Friday. Are we going to discuss maybe a project that we talked about that day, the student energy project, but we add that into this, or is that going to be something separate that we will discuss?
No, Mayor Barkley, it was, I tagged it for a discussion item today. Yeah, I think this meeting would be appropriate to have that dialogue.
Okay, well, just to refresh, and Councillor Maceras, I know your way, but when Sean Collins was here on Friday, he has an organization called studentenergy.org, and they did a project at NATE. Some of the funding came from Prairie Cans, which is the federal government economic development arm. And they did a project in NATE where they put up a small solar array. The students did it, put it together. So that's part of the process, is you have to have students in a program doing this. And then the power that NATE saved from the installation, which is not a must, but NATE is now paying that power value back to Student Energy. So Student Energy is a global organization that was founded in 2012, I believe. Sean was one of the co-founders and very involved in it. They're doing work with basically university students and on energy innovation across the world. United Nations is involved. Governments like Denmark is very involved in it. So we were kind of brainstorming with him, and had asked one conversation I'd had with him a few weeks ago about, could we do something like that in Innisfail, even though we don't have an NAIT here, we don't have a University of Alberta, but could we potentially do something like that here, where we could get a studentenergy.org project in the community and put up a solar array on something, like whether it's fire hall or lighting the lights at the new outdoor rink or whatever that might be. But that's kind of where that conversation came in. And he's got 2 spots left for funding from the Prairie Can grants. And if we're interested, then I think we should get more detail from him and kind of see how it all works. But it's up to council whether you're interested in that or not.
Definitely interested. It sounds amazing. Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, I thought last week was a really good opportunity for us to learn something new. I think the student project is a good opportunity to work with high school students, and you had mentioned that with Sean. Not necessarily a post-secondary student, but maybe there's some students that want to tag along on that. And I think it's great. I think the vision is what we really need, moving forward with our strat plan. But I do think that I'm in favor of it. It makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, we do need to have university student, well, not
Yeah.
university, but
Post-secondary.
post-secondary students involved, but we can find for sure. Councillor
think-
Bates?
Yeah, I think I support the concept. I'd like to see us figure out how to involve, even if it's as a tutoring thing, the high school, if we could somehow. But I see it as yeah, it's something we could do for sure.
Director Jenkins, will you, well, I guess we can chat about getting more information about that going forward. And
Yeah, Mayor Barkley, is really to weigh your interest in that program. Actually, due to the urgency, I have an email drafted to Sean today.
okay.
If you want more information, certainly just state that. We'll try to get in that queue of the last 2 spots and get you more detail.
Yeah, he did say he needed to know. He told me maybe it already left. I don't know what, 2nd week of June by the latest, but yeah, so beginning of June, let's say.
We're speaking about Sean, then I'll put it back to you guys. But he also presented Innisfail offense to his council. So the Innisfail offense, maybe more to Councilor Mazzaro's, just some of the he listed different things, Innisfail offense, project ideation, capital attraction, energy and climate strategy, municipal development corporation, grants and subsidies, Innisfail attraction summit, energy and offsite project development. I guess, was there anything in that conversation too that tweaked council's interest, or do you wish administration to explore what he meant by that list? And if so, say so, and we can certainly, administration can dial in with him and kind of explore what he meant in more detail in that list.
Mayor Barkley, through to CEO Becker. Absolutely. One thing that I took from it is that within that, there's a lot. I mean, it's very, very wide area. So if we could get a little bit more information, or if he has any ideas that are more specific, I'd definitely like to engage in that. I think it's just from that presentation and everything that we've been doing lately, it's almost like there was a script. I mean, we've only been here together for 7 months, but everything, all these little components, and I know a lot of that is due to administration and our work, but I just find it interesting that really how all of these pieces are aligning and these things are coming into our field of view, and it's yes, things are aligned and it's really working. And you know, as far as Sean's comment, and I know he did say that we could engage with high school students for the student energy, and I think it would be wonderful to have something like that, to be able to also collaborate with maybe Red Deer Polytechnic or whatever institution to be able to do that. So I think we should definitely focus in and try and find out if Shauna has any specific ideas for us.
I also think like with the potential solar array at the industrial park, if that got off the ground, then, you know, you talk about selling carbon offsets, and that would certainly be something he would be helpful in. I mean, he acts as a broker for that kind of thing. So I think there's so much information there, and you know, it's very broad, but narrowing it down, I think the student energy thing, if we did that, it's kind of a quick win. Some of the other ideas, we talked about steam coming out of certain smokestacks. I mean, that would be so long-term and you know, if it's even possible, but yeah, I would really like you to continue dialogue with him, and we, you know, even have more discussions with him as council and hear more ideas and how it all fits together. I think it's, as Councillor Dunham says, it's like things are just aligning and setting up with our strat plan and the community economic development plan and the energy focus and power and how important that is. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun right now.
There we go. Yeah, no, I would agree. It's a lot of good things going on. What I took out of it as well is that I think it was a municipal development type corporation that he was talking about, and how do we build those relationships with our different partners outside of Innisfail as well. I'm 100%. I'm fine with administration coming back with the detail. It's just for me, sitting in that presentation, I think it would help myself have that maybe another meeting with him where it's a bit of an overview, and Sean doesn't have to be here, but maybe something virtual that can help us wrap our heads around it. Again, I think I'd mentioned that to you, Jean, today, so this afternoon. Thanks.
Anything else, CEO Becker, from this conversation, or no, you're good with that? And Director Jenkins, so we're moving on to Director Kennedy, expression of interest.
Yep. Actually, Director Vickers and I both met with MCCAC with regards to an expression of interest on a electric vehicle charging station, just to get an idea of the details and what's involved with the possibility of investing in a charging station for the town. So we did meet with them, got an understanding of the costs in that $250,000 to $300,000 range for a class 3 or level 3 charger. The maximum allowable grant for that would be up to $150,000. But it would be, their recommendation would be to go with that level 3 charger. There are different levels, level 1, level 2. It's just those take a lot longer to charge. So you got to sit there longer. Their recommendation was to not go with those ones. You want to spend the money up front and have ones that will be used. A couple of the things that we took from it, were the costs. A user bylaw would be needed though to be created if we're going to be having a user charge on that. So what are the steps for that? Something like this, we obviously haven't budgeted for, so it would be something that we would have to go back and look at where we can budget for. And so potentially, either something next year or somehow we can budget into it would be kind of, I guess, the recommendation for that one.
Director Kenny, I have a question. Like, we have a charging station in town with our partnership with Equus, and I guess in conferences, discussions that you have all been to, like, do you see down the road with the EVs coming, is that something that municipalities are going to be providing, or is that something that we're going to find the co-op gas bars providing? Because that's where things are moving to. I see the other day Starbucks, right? And that Starbucks is now wanting to put a Starbucks and a charging station together. well, it makes sense, right? Like,
Yeah.
put the put the charging station beside the coffee shop. So, you know, or the fact that, you know, fee to use, well, why wouldn't we charge a fee, right? You can't run your vehicle, your gas vehicle without paying for the gas. Like, well, why are we providing like charge for nothing? So I guess those are some of the things that kind of run through my head, like why the municipality doing this, or can we partner with somebody, or do we need another charging station right now? And, or are we going to see private
Right.
companies build these out as needed, because they will be needed.
I think the market's trying to be more private myself. It was just something that we thought we'd look into just to see what those costs are, and something that even for fleet ourselves, we were looking at, like, so maybe a level 2, what does that cost? That type of thing. So something that we just keep in our kind of an education more than anything.
So can you get this as a, like as a fleet charger, this in this particular program, or?
Yeah, we can definitely go into the program. You know, level 2 chargers, I think the rebate for those were in that 100,000 range. So it does reduce down with the less charge, but it's something that we could definitely look at as we look at our fleet and we start evaluating that trend as we move along. So.
Thank you. Councillor Hystad.
Yeah, your worship. Actually, it's interesting. In Edmonton, when we built our new headquarters, the development permit had us put in 4 chargers. We have 4 chargers at our new office in Edmonton. So, you know, we may in the future, don't write this, Johnny. The reality is you may have some development in the future in rural communities where we're asking those developers to put in charging stations, or if there's a new mall going into the community, we may ask that, you know, who knows? And that's where we may need to keep our heads on the game, in the game a bit for that. But we have 4, which is, it's kind of cool. The world's changing. Thanks.
It is changing very quickly, and I think that's a really good point. Like the, you know, new development, it's something that we need to take a very serious look at and make sure that those capabilities are there without question. Councillor Bates.
So my question is, if we wanted to put a charger in tomorrow or soon, it's not a long-term thing to get it done. You can do it inside of a couple of months. Can you not?
You know, I think it would be, I can't remember if they told us a time frame. But it really depends on what the infrastructure is that we have as well.
Right.
A couple of the things that would be required with a level 3 is phase 3 power, you know, certain infrastructure for Wi-Fi, that type of thing. So further investigation would be required, obviously.
So my initial thoughts with the questions that are here or would be, let's wait and see what we get for a fleet down the road some point. My little bit of research, not all EVs that you have today can even be charged off a level 3.
Mm-hmm.
They have to move down to a level 2, and probably a level 3 has all the level 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, I don't see the hurry. I'd say let's keep abreast of the knowledge of what's going on, and if we get to the point where we would be considering our own fleet. And then my other personal feeling is that if we charged anybody else's, we absolutely charge. I don't see how we can, because the electricity isn't free, and I can't see our taxpayers funding somebody's Tesla. That's where I'm at.
Okay, well, thank you. And are you talking about the industrial park, Director Kennedy, as well?
Yeah, I can
perfect.
definitely give you a quick update on the industrial park solar. So we've been looking at, as you're aware, is the solar possibility to use generation on one of the lots within the proposed Southwest Industrial Park. We did have some initial discussions with Fortis Alberta in regards to just on a real high level initial review to see what is this doable? Is there a possibility? Came out with a really positive outcome from Fortis, who actually did our initial pre-application for it on kind of our behalf. and came out really positive. So we did look at some more detail. Kind of the three next steps that we see coming are part of their requirements is a high-level distribution study completed by Fortis. And this provides with that approximate interconnections as well as assigning a queue within that distribution link. So gives us a spot so nobody else can take it. So that's important. Second step would be a high-level transmission study that's completed by AltaLink. This provides, an indication of what upgrades are required for fairly minimal cost, but it does give us that heads up look of what that cost investment potentially would be. And then third, a detailed distribution study. So I did just receive that today actually from Green Cat Renewables. That's really two stages within their proposal. Phase one is a feasibility assessment, and then phase two would be a regulatory compliance. The phase one is probably in that $25,000 to $35,000 range investment. And then the phase two would get you into the $50,000 to $60,000 investment stage. So there is, starting to get some investment requirements in there. But I do think we could get into those first two high-level ones for minimal investment and at least get us that idea of what it looks like. In discussions with others, as well as Megan inquired with Elemental there, estimated project cost is in that $3 to $4 million range for investment. But as you can see, projected revenue that we had from Fortis is about $500,000 a year is what the projected revenue would be. So we'd have a payoff of 3 to 5 years, 5 to 6 years in order to pay that project off. So significant revenue projection for that type of project, but it is a pretty big upfront capital investment tool.
Do you know, Director Kennedy, like time frame, say on step one, like getting that spot in the queue?
That's fairly quick. We can do that, get that going right now.
Okay.
And then that would be done. Overall project time frame, we've been told in that 18 to 24 months is probably to get it actually generating project value. So it is a significant amount of time to get it going, but I think it's a pretty viable project.
And Green Cat, just so people know, I believe Green Cat is who worked on worked with Bilton at the time, right? Getting it to the point where they sold. Yeah. And the $500,000 revenue, maybe I asked this before. If I did, I apologize. But is that just power generation?
It is just power generation.
So no carbon offset, whatever that might come to, and
further investigation would be needed for that side of the benefit.
Yeah. And do you also know, has there been some changes recently? I understand where at one point there was limitations on how much you could sell to the grid, where I understand that has been changed to where it's unlimited now. Do you know?
That I'm not aware of.
Okay, maybe just check into that, because I thought at one time there was a bit of a cap on it, shall we say, and what's that? Yeah, I don't know. Just curious. Anyway, well, sounds good. So again, I guess you'll bring this forward. Is it next Monday? You want us to?
Yeah, I could definitely bring further as a formal, I guess, direction to go forward with these maybe first two, or even I can provide more at that time. I'll provide more information on the proposal in regards to the details and requirements for the detailed study of it and what benefit that does.
Yeah, maybe like a time frame too, Director Kennedy, for each step in it. So just so we know, and I don't know, I'll ask the rest of council, are you in favor of administration coming back with this next Monday in a more formal manner? Heads are nodding quietly.
I'll speak. I am. And then how those steps fit in with the overall scheme of time. Yeah. Thank you.
Mayor Barkley, thank you. Anytime that I see projected revenue of that sort of dollars and that short of time frame to pay it back, we've been talking about how we're going to support this community going forward without increasing taxes and trying to bring more revenue to the town. And to me, this is just such an obvious one. So yeah, I look forward to seeing what comes next.
Your worship, I'm gonna be cheeky. There's 500,000 there per year. That there's that property across from Field and Forge. I think there's 12 acres we could utilize too. And I think that would really help offset some of these costs and maybe pay for some of our expansions that we need in the future.
Do you want to put a solar farm on that property? Is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
that's what I
Okay,
said.
let's do
So
it.
you maybe do,
Okay.
well, that's, you put a solar farm on there and you beautify it so that the residents are okay with it and still generates money coming into the community.
Pollinators.
Yeah. How's that for cheeky?
I'm good. No,
Thanks.
I'm all about revenue generation for sure. More lucrative than house building. Okay, well, thank you so much. I think we just need a, is that the end? Yes. So we just need a motion from someone to accept this as information, please.
I'll make that motion, Mayor Barkley.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Maceras. All in favor? Perfect. And now we have 3.3, Manager Leaf is here to go over the community standards bylaw. Welcome.
So the purpose of this is to update you with the draft of the community standards bylaw. This bylaw has combined the current 2010 community standards bylaw with the existing 2009 nuisance bylaw. Administration aims to bring the bylaw to you on the 9th of May at the regular council meeting. The background, the community standards bylaw regulates nuisances, public disturbances and neighbourhood livability issues within the town. Administration drafted the 2022 bylaw based on current community issues and trends, recent bylaws approved in other municipalities, feedback from protective services and input from legal services. A summary of the major enhancements included in the new bylaw are as follows. Updated new definitions for loitering, harassment, which includes a legal suggestion for more forms of non-verbal stroke visual forms, noxious weeds, nuisance, panhandling, statutory holidays, unoccupied property. Construction, maintenance and snow removal noise is restricted on statutory holidays in addition to the Saturday and Sunday. Provision for the school and hospital sites to request an exception to the snow removal hours when weather impacts parking lot use. Provision to allow grass on undeveloped properties to exceed 15 centimetres if granted permission. A development permit may allow work on motor vehicles beyond allowable routine maintenance on residential sites only if in compliance with permit conditions. Chronic nuisance properties as implemented by the City of Red Deer in 2021. Prohibition of flyers left on vehicles or unsolicited material left at or on properties. Harassment added to the bullying section. Section to address panhandling. Updated Schedule A penalties following review with other municipalities. The CPO suggested fines. Every person who contravenes the bylaw where a fine is not listed in Schedule A is guilty of an offence and a conviction is liable to a fine of $500. Schedule B has been added for chronic nuisance administration penalties. Note, symbols of hate and legal opinion summarised. We cannot directly regulate or prohibit hate symbols, public or private land, as it encroaches on federal jurisdiction and would likely infringe freedom of expression under Section 2B of the Charter of Rights and Freedom. We can indirectly regulate by amending the bullying stroke harassment provision in the community standard bylaw to clarify what bullying and harassment may take place by way of verbal, non-verbal gestures or written communications, including flags and symbols. This indirect approach would only apply in public places. Strategic plan alignment is to improve the knowledge, acceptance and respect of bylaws, provide a safe community for citizens, groups and businesses. Public engagement, the community will be informed of how the updated 2022 community standards bylaw will impact them.
You're done. Okay. So, question, Manager Lee, how does the bullying and the harassment, are we, like I'm on page one of the actual bylaw, are we adding the word flags in? Like, would we put in flags, symbols, stickers, like, or is it covered the way it is?
This is the verbiage that was recommended via the legal team.
Okay.
Again, actions, gestures, symbols, images, or other behaviors. So that was suggested by them on the best way to verbalize that
Okay.
definition.
And then section 19, a nuisance in respect of a building or structure, in that whole section. So, like, what is the offense? Like, when I went through the Schedule A, I don't find a number 19 in Schedule A. Maybe I.
So as directed previously, anything that constitutes an offence would be the $500 if it's not already included in section
Okay.
A.
Okay. So like there's a lot left up to judgment, of course. And, you know, if you go by maybe a certain area of town, you might see some buildings that are kind of dilapidated looking, and would it be possible that we may now have some clout to making those look nicer? I'll just say the fourplexes.
So in previous discussions with legal is that the officer has a level of discretion.
Yeah.
However, he must act as what is considered a reasonable person. That's the way he must act. In respect to the fourplexes, the area itself, we are currently ongoing with files with regard to some of those properties on how their current status in respect of repair, maintenance, etc. Again, unfortunately, we did attend a conference last week which dealt upon unsightly and nuisance properties. Again, it's not a quick process, unfortunately, and that's the experience of other municipalities as well.
So I'm sorry, we are having some dialogue with the owner of those?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? Councillor Hystad?
I do, Your Worship. Actually, with loitering and littering, so it'll be presented next week. I'm going to be away at a conference, but I do have a couple items like loitering and littering. I do, you know, I see that as an issue throughout the town. But so if I want to make an amendment, I would do so at that meeting, right, on the 9th, proper meeting.
Well, you can put your suggestion forward now.
I was seeing the issues that, you know, and I think this has been ongoing issues in some of our parks. You have I think sometimes our fines are pretty minimal at times. So loitering and littering, I say, you know, when you want to curb something, you penalize people. It's like speeding. You penalize them. So for example, littering, in my mind, should be $500 if you're caught littering. Loitering, some of the individuals at the Centennial Park and some of the behaviors that some of the residents have had to put up with the last number of years, that's loitering. You're hanging out there for an hour or two. You're not being productive citizens. You're hanging out, causing trouble. And so those are two areas that I would see, Manager Leith, that I kind of like, you know, you nail them. So that's where I'm at. Thanks.
CEO Becker?
Question, Mayor Barkley, Councillor Hystad, is there wording in the bylaw that would help capture your vision, or is it more of an enforcement, the application of the bylaw?
I see it as an enforcement, but if you have, you know, I know there's signage down at that one area that I'm talking about, but if it's signed, loitering $750 or littering for $500, then the stick's there. They know what they're doing. And if people are going to work with us through the community policing model that we want to project at the community policing committee, then that's that's fair warning that you're not there walking your dog. You're there causing a problem for our bylaw officers. That's how I was looking at it. So I don't know. You guys, I would say that the bylaw enforcement has been doing a good job. Your team has been doing a good job. It's tough though when there's only two of you in the community, and then you have your RCMP trying to do their job where they have thousands of, hundreds of kilometers to look after. So I may be off base, but I was just curious if this may help.
I personally like the idea of the $500 fine for littering. And I don't know about loitering, manager leaf. I mean, we know people go down there and they park their cars, and there can be quite a lineup of cars and on a Friday night or whatever. Like, is that loitering, or is that just kids being kids and they're not necessarily causing trouble? Sometimes they are, but is that enforceable, I guess is.
Your worship, that is a challenge because the youth do gather there. The majority of the time it's peaceful social gathering. We do have picnic tables there as well. We encourage that it's a park area. That's what we would like to encourage. Again, seeking direction on that is enforcement would be a challenge, certainly to provide proof and evidence that somebody was loitering and had no productive purpose at that location, being in it, that it's a park. The suggestion, if the desire is to increase fine levels, obviously we can make amendments prior to bringing it to Monday's council meeting in respect of certainly the littering, if that's what I'm hearing.
So that, I think last time we saw this as well, there was a different fine for minors and adults as far as bullying. So I assume that's been changed now, because we just have the one category, 5859, bullying and harassment is $500. And I don't see a.
Yeah, your worship, there was some discussion, and Officer Howes did some research with regard to RCMP into that matter, where the feeling was, in respect of youth, certainly, is that if they make a mistake, it shouldn't be that ultimate offence as such, and that there's no coming back from it. Certainly the parenting issue is a challenge, as well as what sort of reception certain parents are going to make in respect to those children. And to have that disparity, they felt was relatively fair at that point in time, but we obviously have amended it to make it the same as for youth as for adults now.
The other thing that Peace Officer House mentioned too is, you give the ticket, they end up in court, and then the court reduces the ticket because it's not reasonable. So I guess we need to keep that in mind as well.
And that's always the potential. And once this bylaw has been applied, we'll see how that's received by the courts.
Did you want to add anything, Councillor Hystad, on the loitering end of things?
No, I think that Manager Lee has a good I think where you're coming from makes sense. Is maybe I'm being a little harsh, and but I think it's just monitoring it, and I know that you're doing your job, and so is the RCMP, but I do believe that the littering piece with good signage and at 500, that's fair game. That's how I'm looking at it. That's just me personally. I don't know where everybody else is. So.
Councillor Bates.
Yeah, but all the way back to when you were speaking, I think the littering is pretty obvious. The loitering is, I looked at our definition, the act of remaining in a public place for a protracted time without apparent purpose. Well, like, nothing could be more vague than that. And I'm not against kids getting together, socializing. You could be doing that on your front lawn and be an act of loitering. So I think you have to be careful with that one. The littering is pretty obvious, but maybe you shouldn't have the two of them together.
Sounds like my daily routine. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley, through to Manager Leith. We had this conversation a few weeks ago and I'm still confused about it. Can you tell me how, if somebody is littering in Centennial Park, which bylaw is applied and why the fines are different? So Parks Bylaw 1440 has a littering fine of 50 and 150, but the community standards littering penalty is 150, 250 and 500.
Yeah, at this point in time, if this bylaw would go through, this would be the most current bylaw. They would apply the fee schedule that was in this bylaw, not the parks. Yeah.
If I may add to Councillor Wing, this is going to generate an update of the parks bylaw. So you'll see that duplication removed.
Anybody have anything more to add to this, or Councillor Bates?
So referring back to when we discussed this a week or so ago, and Councillor Wing asked some questions about panhandling. I looked at it more carefully and it does seem strange, some of the stuff we put in there, the time and the businesses, like, does the time really matter? And does the business really matter? Why shouldn't it be any time and any place?
Your worship, through to Councillor Bates, I think the intent of the or that element of the bylaw is to provide some guidance in and around certainly liquor stores, cannabis stores, stores where potentially persons could be impaired at that point in time. And again, the times and hours of the day, what would be deemed as socially acceptable to approach somebody for gain, I suppose, is the way to put that. And again, this was a take from the City of Red Deer's bylaw. The officers in here would rather it be left in to give them some tools if that were to occur. In our community, it's not something we see very often, but they felt that the wording and the reasonable ability of that bylaw was the way it was written was fair.
Okay, I guess they have to administer it. Thank you.
All righty then, thank you. So we'll just need a motion for someone to accept this draft as information. Councillor Hystad.
I'll make that motion to accept this draft as information.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? No? All in favor? Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Manager Leith, for coming today. Just go into correspondence and information, please, Kara. So the Innisfail Green Clean Challenge, what we should do is, we don't have to do it here, whether Kara wants to send out a doodle poll or something, but we should pick probably an evening, early evening or something, where we can, anybody that wants to participate in this, we can get together and take our garbage bags and go clean up an area. Everybody interested in doing that? Yep. Okay. So what time of day does it work for people? Maybe if we kind of give Kara at least some guidance here, it can be helpful, like 5-ish or so. Okay. And any particular evening, Wednesdays are out for me. So does anybody else have any evenings that are not good? Okay. Yep. Sure. So maybe Kara, just send a doodle poll out maybe towards the end of the time frame, and maybe you could also pick a spot for us before so there's something available for us. Last year we did the ball diamond area up around the tennis courts and stuff, but I don't know, the park or something, whatever. We're not eligible for the Golden Oscar.
Can we, Mayor Barkley, can we sign our kids up for that too? Or is it just us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, bring everybody. Yeah, anyone. Yes, yeah, for sure. In fact, there was a younger person, wasn't there, Director Jenkins that came almost every day to get garbage bags last year.
Yeah, he won the Oscar
Yeah.
last year. Yeah, anything, community groups. I know we get Girl
Yeah.
Scout groups, things like that, that come and do
Churches.
it, families, anyone and everyone.
We've got the library minutes, community age friendly. A letter from Minister MacGyver on the lagoon remediation, just confirming their commitment to us. Anybody wants to participate in McHappy Day, you can either sign up yourself, all the details are there, or I'm sure Kara can coordinate for you. And then Mrs. Thorson's letter on Dodds Lake concerns, I did reply to her, thanked her for her letter, and that certainly we are aware of some ongoing issues there. So if there's no questions, just have someone make a motion that we accept the correspondence as information. Okay, thank you, Councillor Wing. All in favor? Great. And now we will do round table, starting with Councillor Hystad.
You're gonna be in trouble. I got lots of stuff. No, actually, I wanted to, Linda Begg is a resident. She lives on 50th Street, and she, first thing, I talked to her the other day, and she said, I thought I was gonna be in trouble or something like that, but she actually wanted to thank the town staff and Director Kennedy. There was some snow that was built up where she lives, and there was lots of rocks on the boulevard. So when they go to cut the grass, she was concerned about it. And one of the workers who was just the public works guys, they talked to him. And before you know it, there was I think it was the summer students picking the rocks on the boulevard. So she wanted to say thanks so much to the staff. And I thought that would be a good news story. She said, I'm not complaining. I just want to say something that thank you very much for doing that. I was talking to the new and used store. It used to be TNT. There's that middle alley there where the benches are and the graffiti, and Casey Sorensen owns TNT. And so I did say I was going to bring it up, and I know that graffiti did come up in the last paper talking about some of the issues. I know that the movie theater has been tagged up pretty good as well. So I think there's some work that we can do with the businesses and try to help them in the near future on that. But Casey was he believes that the benches, what happens is people are hanging out there at night, and it allows them to just loiter. So, and they're hanging out, and it's causing a concern. So I think I think we do need to look into that and see how we can work with him in the near future. So if we can, I guess I'm just bringing that up. And if we can have a further consultation with bylaw on it. As to Centennial Park, thanks for the chat with our council today on that. But I think the big thing that I want to bring forward is another one is the green bins. Like I know that we're looking at is the organic bins. We're looking at different dates in the future, right? So when do they start again? Is it today? Awesome. But we are looking at other dates to bring it sooner, and then, yeah, so thanks again. And no, I want to commend Dale for the Tea with Queens. I was there, and it was a really good, fun event. So thanks, Dale, for doing that for Pride. So that's it.
Yeah, the weekly organics are starting this week. And then are we moving to monthly, or have we decided that like back when we get to winter? Or
I'll be coming back to council with a
Okay.
recommendation on some ideas of what costs.
okay, because this is earlier than typical, correct? The starting weekly
No,
now?
it starts in May. Yep, first of May.
Okay, okay. Thought we saw June before on something. Councillor Maceros.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I don't have anything to report this week, but I would like to thank council and administration for the kind words and condolences. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to have you back. Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Last Thursday, I was on the Community Economic Development Advisory Group meeting, which was so wonderful to see that there's plans and dates being associated with now, and just how quickly things are moving forward. And I think it's just speaks volumes to our administration of all the work that they've been doing with Eric. And as I mentioned at the meeting, and that I think what it's going to bring to this community and the optics that it's going to bring to how dedicated this team is to creating a future for Innisfail, not only for the current residents, but also for people that have the potential to be moving here. I think it's just so exciting. The Friday engagement with Sean Collins, I think my fellow councillor Jason and I said a while back about blowing his mind, and it literally, watching Sean, you could just see the intelligence and the creativity and that person. I'm very excited about us finding opportunities to work with him, maybe with the student energy, but also in upcoming, because I think there's just such a valuable asset in that person. And he just aligns so much with what this council and what this administration stands for and is trying to do. So I look forward to us hearing more from him, and us perhaps getting an opportunity to work with him in several capacities going forward.
Perfect. Thank you. And Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I guess to echo the comments relative to our meeting on Friday with Sean Collins, absolutely enjoyed it. Certainly from the energy perspective, as well as the potential opportunities for youth. The whole language around CCUS. Got that? I got that. It is mind blowing. I feel like I'm totally illiterate about a lot of it, so I need to get busy and sharpen my pencil. The week ahead, MPC will meet tomorrow. That's the first time in a few weeks, which is good. Parkland Regional Library Strategic Plan follow-up. I've been invited back to meet with a portion of the group that did some work on the strategic plan a couple of months ago. We have some business visits coming up, and then I'm going to be filling in for Councillor Harrison this Thursday at the Autumn Grove Strategic Planning session. So my last question or request of all of you is, I've been asked to invite all of you, if you would be interested in making a presentation to a grade 6 class in one of the Red Deer Catholic schools where I have a connection. Their teacher wonders if the mayor and a few councillors, including her mother, would consider coming to this class to talk about municipal governance and run a short mock council meeting. So if that's a possibility, I will send you all an email and you can say yay or nay, and we can go from there, if that's okay. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe send it through to Todd and Kara, and all of us, but include them on it, and then we can maybe try to organize that, and for sure, that'd be great. And Councillor Bates.
So I attended, really, I guess, other than the council, was just the Sean Collins engagement, and that was very interesting. MPC tomorrow, and if I've got my calendar right, Protective Services barbecue tomorrow, and 52 North manufacturing visit later in the week. Thank you.
Yeah, and I as well attended ECDev advisory group last week, and then Sean on Friday, emergency preparedness. Do we have any details about that? Whoever I'm looking at, Kara, you're always hurting. Yeah, like I think we're supposed to be barbecuing, correct?
Yes, there was a request if you were wanting to participate.
Yeah.
It wasn't you have to type of thing. It was just a request being put
To
out.
barbecue, correct?
Yeah.
No, Jason's barbecuing. And of course, have some business visits this week. So we have Day Dental and 52 North. Looking forward to that, among some other things. So yeah, we'll, what was that? Okay. We'll go into upcoming events, please.
I do have a question, Council. Who will be barbecuing, just so we can tell the fire department? 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
I could, the whole time or do you want to split this up or what?
It's only 4 to 6.
Yeah, it's a couple hours.
Yeah.
So whatever you can put in, I'd say.
Okay,
I can-
this could be a joke. How many counselors does it take to barbecue a hamburger? I know the
Depends
answer.
if you
but
want it well done or not.
I know the answer, so I won't say it. Lived it. I've lived it. Okay, and we'll just have someone make a motion, please, to accept the upcoming events as information.
Mayor Barclay, I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunn. I'm all in favor. Okay, and then we'll have someone make a motion, please, to go in camera.
Mayor Barclay, I would make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wing. All in favor?